Looking at the price of Bitcoin, I'm honestly quite mortified. Today is Friday, going into Saturday, and the CME chart closes in roughly 33 minutes time. And within this 33 minutes, unless Bitcoin is able to surge back into over 100K, which would mean it would pump $5,000, over $5,000, then I'm going to be continuing with my mortified feelings against Bitcoin. And I'll tell you why the CME is important, because we're going into the weekend, the CME is going to be closed. So even if this is an important point of context, which you need to keep in your mind whilst watching the video, even if Bitcoin was to, let's say, magically pump into the 100 to 102, 101 regions over the weekend, you're going to be creating a CME gap. And we know that CME gaps 95% of the time fill. So if you did see a pump to the upside, there's going to be a gap, and that's likely going to be filled when you go into next week and the following weeks. So really, I was just still holding on to my luck, praying that Bitcoin would be able to close maybe magically over 100K by the time the CME gap would end, or the CME chart would end. But sadly, that's not the case. So we need to go into the Bitcoin price analysis, do a bit of a damage control, take a look at what are the concerning signs from a macro all the way into a short-term basis. And this video is going to give you clarity on really which way Bitcoin is going to be heading into. Guys and girls, if you enjoy this content, make sure to destroy the like button as you're coming into this video. And I do have one special request. The special request is we are literally 50 subscribers away from 60,000 subscribers. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. I promise you're not going to regret it. We do daily videos every single day, regardless of the day, the time. I'm here to give you updates. I do daily live streams over on the Moonshow channel too. So these videos, I find them to be, I hope that they're useful, and the current subscribers, they can verify if they're useful or not in the comments, but I think you're not going to regret subscribing to the channel. With that said, let's jump into the daily time frame. And actually, let's start off with the macro, all right? Let's start off with the monthly and make our way into the short-term analysis. This is the Bitstamp chart. This will give you the biggest picture of Bitcoin, looking at all prior price action. Do you want to go into the 12-month? I think the 12 month is going to be also interesting. Okay, let's start off with the 1 year analysis. On the 1 year analysis, you're going to notice a pattern that's been existing over the past 2 cycles, where Bitcoin produces 1, 2, 3 green candles, and then it's followed by 1 red bear market candle, and then the price reverses into 1, 2, 3 bull market candles, and then you go into a bear market candle. This cycle, we've been following the prior cycles quite closely. Look, the trajectory has been the same. The movements have been quite similar. The cycles have been following each other very nicely. At some point, this cycle, the 4 year cycle, it's going to be broken. But for now, we're following them very nicely. And I do think that this cycle is still going to be quite similar in structure to the prior 2 cycles. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 bull market candle, and that would mean that 2026 is going to be bearish. How bearish is the real question? And I'll jump into the monthly time frame to start off in the monthly analysis. When we go into the monthly analysis, you have one huge multi-cycle resistance that Bitcoin has been rejected from 2 times. You can see that in the last cycle, Bitcoin got rejected 2 times, and that led into the bear markets. Keep in note that there were a bunch of exhaustion candles at this line of resistance, and then you saw the correction, which kind of make things even worse, I would say. Also keep in mind that there is a bearish divergence on the 12-month, but this is the monthly time frame, and you also had a bearish divergence right over here on the price of Bitcoin on the monthly time frame. The only difference between these 2 events were that we haven't seen the crazy amounts of overboughtness. We've not seen the same amount of market euphoria as we've done so in the 2017 cycle and as we've done so in 2021. That's simply due to monetary policy. People don't have money, and if people don't have money, they can't invest into altcoins. That's the simplest explanation that I'll leave you with for today's video. And there's also another critical point. You have a descending trend over on this RSI overboughtness. There's a clear descending trend line, which you can't even extend into somehow the Genesis cycle. But there's a clear descending trend line in terms of how much overboughtness can be experienced in given bull markets, in the following future bull markets. There is still some space. And I know that brings a question mark. And I'll go into bullish cases for Bitcoin down the line in this video. But for now, that's also another bearish sign over on the monthly time frame. Going into the weekly time frame, this is where things get very interesting. If you've been a follower of this channel for a while, you guys know that I emphasize a lot on two specific indicators. One of them is the bull and bear market support band, and the other is the 54 simple moving average. Throughout Bitcoin's history, whenever the 54 simple moving average has been broken to the downside, even with one singular weekly candle closure to the downside of the 54 simple, you have began the bear market. That's what happened in the last cycle. You did it in the cycle before. 54 simple broken just with one weekly confirmation, and that started the bear market. So you go to the Genesis cycle and the same story. You break it with just one candle confirmation and you go into the bear market. So 54 simple being currently broken to the downside is concerning. And this is the context for the CME chart. Now, if Bitcoin is able to make it back above the 54 simple moving average, you're going to create a huge CME gap, meaning regardless of the situation, Bitcoin will come down again to close the CME gap. So right now, the fact that the CME is closing in 15 minutes and that we don't really have any bullish momentum in the markets, the stock market is closed, or it's going to be closed very soon. Like, it's just, there isn't much hope for Bitcoin at this moment, given the 54 simple moving average. So we would have broken this 54 simple moving average, and the next line of very critical support for Bitcoin on the weekly time frame isn't going to come until 93K, which we have almost tagged. We came down to 94, but we haven't come down to 93,400. So that's the next level of major support for Bitcoin, and it's fueled by the neckline of a prior double top created in November and December of 2024. See, if you're going to come down to 93.4, then you might as well come down to the CME gap on Bitcoin, which is at $91,960. And with the price discrepancies, that's going to be about $92,000 on the spot price. So to me, Bitcoin tagging the 92 is pretty much, in my opinion, written in stone. So at 92, then what is the event that Bitcoin will produce? Are we going to see a bounce? Are we going to see a further drop? CryptoKid, what do you see given these signs? And, we can even go into more bearish signs. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'll just point out a few more bearish things because why not, right? Let's make sure everybody's mood is completely destroyed. So there is a huge linear ascending support line that Bitcoin created since the beginning of the bear markets. We have confirmed a break below that linear ascending support. We've also broken linear ascending support right over here. So linear ascending support right over here has been broken too, officially, with this daily or weekly candle close. It's going to happen in 2 days' time, but chances are we're going to break below it. Maybe we don't. And because of that 2% maybe chance, I'm still not closing my long positions over on weeks. I'm still waiting. And I'm going to make a big video about that on Sunday when we get that weekly candle close. But, this looks like it's going to be broken to the downside. And then you have these support lines that Bitcoin creates, which Benjamin Cohen talked about in our interview. These are the descending supports that are made, and Bitcoin is broken below that descending support for the first time. Another sort of bearish confirmation comes from the RSI. The RSI, whenever Bitcoin saw drops and points of very extreme fear, that was during the Japanese yen carry trades unwinds. This was August 4th of 2024. April 2025, Trump tariffs, and even in September 2023, when Bitcoin came down to 26,000, the RSI always bottomed out at 44. You always bottomed out at 44, and you never went below. So if this weekly candle closes as we appear, as it looks like right now, then it's going to confirm a closure below RSI 44, and it will indicate further price movements to the downside. I don't think there's anything else I want to mention. Actually, that's a lie. One more thing on the macros. You have the EMA ribbons. The EMA ribbons have historically been able to hold up Bitcoin. In this drop, right, you came down to the lower EMA ribbon, but you still held it. In April 2025, lower EMA ribbon, you still held it. Now, if we close the candle like this, EMA ribbon is going to flip bearish. Another thing that I really do need to mention, as soon as they start overlapping into each other, that's when you're going to get a scenario similar to March of 2022, and it will likely cause the following. I can just bring this up. like these two would have crossed bearishly, and you may like see a price retesting and then coming down. That's also possible, right? So I don't think vomiting straight down is the likeliest option, but it's also there as a probability. And I think the lowest level that Bitcoin will ultimately end up going to will probably be between the range of 77 to the prior all-time high, which was $69,000. I think that is the lows. That's going to be the lows that's created. And then let's see in 2026 or maybe 2027, we start making our move back upwards. That's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin in the macro timeframes. If we jump into the daily time frame, I know this is like an elongated video, but it just puts into perspective every single vision I have and every single thought I have for Bitcoin, and they're all pretty much bearish almost. So we had a double top on Bitcoin, which we discussed on this video. Trap Bitcoin is about to drop more. That was when Bitcoin was at 105.4, and we literally showed that, you know, we've retested the neckline range, the price range, which was the neckline of this double top. We saw a retest, and now we're correcting down, and if that correction does happen, then it will cause Bitcoin to come severely to the downside. So if you look at that price range and you look at the price of Bitcoin as of today, it's exactly what you've done. You've retested and you have capitulated, just like what we pointed out in this video. So how much more are we going to capitulate based off of this picture? Well, if you wanted to calculate the targets of this head and shoulders, or this double top, I may have referred to it as head and shoulders, but it's a double top. This double top pattern, you put the heights below the neckline, make sure you're not on log scale, and that's going to give you 89K. At 89K, we don't have too much support. Support starts building between 88 and 77. So ultimately, to the price levels that I drew on the previous time frame, that's where I think Bitcoin would end up dropping towards. And on the very, very short term, we can go into the 4-hourly. The 4-hourly picture, we had the bearish continuation pattern. We highlighted that we will likely see a retest to its prior supports, turn it into resistance, like so, and then come to the downside. That is what is happening. Nothing too much to commentate on the immediate short-term price action. Guys, that sums up my Bitcoin analysis. Unfortunately, it just doesn't look good. So on Sunday, when we get the weekly candle closure, I'm going to do another big update. And on that big update, we will decide to do some changes in positionings. If you want to prepare and create your account, link is down below to get a very cool bonus from Weeks, and Pinex if you want to try trading bots. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all on the next video very soon. Bye-bye, guys.